Here we are, Peter, at another exciting episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Is that right, Bill?
Yeah. Episode number 340. 340. The name of today's podcast is The Key Ingredients to Creative Real Estate Results.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the description. Making planning become an actuality is not as simple as most believe when first starting out on any venture. In fact, the opposite is true. Often we end up erecting a monster and get more and more confused. Therefore, to have a real estate activity that is meaningful, useful, and lasting, you have to understand the key ingredients of the activity and then be able to make planning become an actuality. This is the only way to succeed for your personal reasons and efforts to create the activity and reap rewards from it. Getting something like this done is often tricky unless you follow along today. We will help guide you on a simple, clear path to getting results that will propel your dreams. Because creative real estate is not a well-defined subject, too many get lost and forgotten, and collapse occurs unless you do what we're about to cover in the next 60 minutes. And you'll be able to you will be pleasantly surprised about how easy it is and why it has been so confusing up to now. So make sure you take notes.
Well, it's interesting. You say creative. Now, I'm an artist, and that's what it's all about. And when you create, you're not just doing the same old things. So we have a bag of tricks and a lot of techniques, lots of ingredients. In the beginning, it can seem like way too many, right?
Yeah.
Actually, what you're really good at is like getting rid of. How you help me, folks? You got to get rid of a lot of ingredients that you don't need. Yeah. Bill's not going to even talk about that today. Nope. But you got to get rid of all that stuff. But then, how do you create with it? I mean, we because we're not in the banking system, the real estate, the realtor system, and all that. We don't have to just follow the rules. We can do, when you buy and sell with your friends, you can do whatever you damn well please. There's no laws about that. So being creative can be like a little Wild West, but you got ingredients for today, I understand.
Yes.
So why don't you take the podcast back over?
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, go ahead.
Topher G says, hey, Bill and Peter in the house. Welcome, Topher.
All right.
All right, so first of all, we're going to do some housekeeping. There are a couple things you should know. First of all, every Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m., thereabouts, Eastern Standard Time, we record this podcast. If you would like to join us, you can go to, because we live stream it, to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can go to any one of those platforms, and you could actually, in the comment section or wherever they allow you to type such things, you can send us a message like Rocky just did. Good morning, Rocky. How are you this morning? So you can type us messages. I do have a rule, though. I absolutely will only answer questions pertaining to whatever we're talking about in the podcast, because these podcasts are recorded and they last for a very long time. However, if you have other questions, you can go to two places. One is our group called Let's Talk Real Estate, and that's on WhatsApp Messenger. So if you go to WhatsApp Messenger and type in Let's Talk Real Estate, you can get into the group. It's a free entry. Or if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand side, there's a support link. All those support tickets come to me. I answer them personally. So if you have any questions that you want to ask that you don't want the group to see, or if it's a personal thing or a deal or whatever, you can do it there. Actually, I prefer to do the deals in WhatsApp Messenger because you'll get more than just my help. Also, if you would subscribe to us so you know when we're on the air, that would be really awesome. And of course, leave us a review and like us, or dislike us. I mean, most people like us. So, anyways, so there you go. Last thing is in the description of wherever you found this podcast or you're watching or listening to it, there is always a link that will help you with the topic that we're talking about. It's usually a tool or some added feature from the podcast that I put in there. And often I put surprises in there, like other places I'll charge for stuff like this in here in the podcast because you're here listening to us for usually 60 minutes plus. I respect your time and I'll put some prize in there for you. So there we go. So let's get started with today's podcast. Start.
Go
ahead, Pete.
Go ahead. So as I was saying before, Bill, you need to go to the bathroom. You need to go.
No, I'm good.
You got your tea. All right, yeah. Okay, you go for a while.
All right, Pete. I'm gonna make a statement that is very simple, but probably the most profound thing that I could ever tell you.
Isn't that the way it goes? But if it's that simple and that profound, Bill, we might not get it.
Yeah, well, it's taken me 20 years to figure it out. So there you go.
Oh,
the most simple things. It's kind of like, thinking about the air you're breathing. It's like you never think about that. You don't think about how your organs in your body run. No, you just put some food in there, and once or twice or three times a day, you go to the bathroom, and that's it.
Until they break. Until they break. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Until they break. Exactly. Like, ooh.
And I say this because it has taken me. It has made me the most amount of millionaires in the country today. So I'm going to say that again. So this profound statement has made the most amount of millionaires in this country to date. Okay. And I know because I don't even know how. I've been kind of doing some reading lately and doing some study, and I'm a little bit lost right now. I don't have like a topic or something I'm heading for, but all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks, the books that I've been reading, because I have books, I buy books and I don't read them right away, and I put them on the shelf. There's a queue over there on my bookshelf on books I haven't read yet, so I keep them on top so I can, when I'm ready to read, I can go get them, right? Yeah. And for whatever reason, the Millionaire Next Door keeps coming up. Great book, right? Great book. And for whatever reason, the 2 or 3 books that I'm reading, because I usually read 2 or 3 books at a time, I read one in the morning, usually one at lunchtime, and then one in the evening. So I have 3 different topics going. I don't read the same book all day long. Okay, unless it's a really good book. Unless it's a really good book, then I stick to it, right? So
like a Jack Reacher book.
Yeah, no, I watched Jack. Yeah, Lee Childs. Yeah, but I've read all his books, most of them twice. So, anyways, here's the datum. We're talking about bullshit right now. Here's the datum. You ready? This is a really profound datum, and I'm going to tell you that it is and should be the core of your life economically. When your production has exceeded your consumption, you've made it in life. When your production has exceeded your consumption, you've made it in life. This is your millionaires. This is your Millionaire Next Door, right? They keep their living standard the same as when they were broke. Like I know, for example, this is probably not a good example, but it's one that comes to the top of my head. Dave Lindahl, right? Dave Lindahl is famous in the real estate business for having 9,000 plus units. So he's got 9,000 plus stores. He's got 9,000 people that pay him, and they say, and we know because we used to hang around with his personal assistant. He had a cape that he bought in Massachusetts. And he lives in that same cape. Now, it's a beautiful house and has everything he wants, but he never went and bought a 10,000 square foot mansion. Right?
Yeah. For what?
This is the reason why, like NFL players and lottery winners and all these people get these chunks of dough and then they don't have it later is because they break this rule. Your production has to exceed your consumption. Okay. So, and then you made it in life. So what I'm going to talk about today is this is the underlying core. You want your real estate business, to do the same thing. You want your production to exceed your consumption. Now, basically, a better way to say that business-wise is, to spend less than you make.
Right. Or make more than you spend, either way.
Yeah, well, that's kind of backwards, because if you make more than you spend, then you'll always be spending too much and then have to go make more, right?
You better spend. You got to spend less.
Which is what my life is a lot of my life is I spend too much and then I got to go make it, right?
Okay. There's a horse and there's a cart.
Right. So, anyways, that's the first thing I want to do, and add that. So, if you take that, when your production has exceeded your consumption, you've made it in life. Now, add that to what Kiyosaki said, right, in his cash flow quadrant. Right. I think it's cash flow. It might have been Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's one of the two. So you add that to what Kiyosaki said, not having to spend a lot of time doing your production. And that's what makes you wealthy. Right.
Oh, I've never heard that said that way. So, yeah, I mean, if you're punching out $12 an hour on the clock, it's a lot of hours. So say that again. If you spend less time.
Yeah. So when your production has exceeded your consumption, you have made it in life. Add that to what Kiyosaki said about not having to spend a lot of time doing your production, and you are wealthy.
Yeah, good.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and we do this by accumulating assets that produce way more than we consume.
Yeah.
Right. That's the true definition of wealth: is getting assets that are more than what you consume. And in my webinars, I talk about, well, if you need $4,000 a month to live, which is a common number, then have assets that are producing $6,000. So you have $2,000 a month for the surprises, the broken toilets or the non-payers or even just to put in reserve, right? Yeah. So if it only takes you 10 hours a month to generate that $4,000, then you're wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the crazy thing about real estate, right? Which is why everybody gravitates, and I say everybody, not as a generality, a lot of people gravitate to or want to or wish to have this.
Yeah.
Right. The crazy thing in real estate is it's the only thing on planet Earth that can do this without a long setup, risk, money, or even a specialized talent. Right? Yep. So you can say, well, you could do that with stock market. That's not true, because if I put $5,000 in the stock market and I get a yield, in other words, profit, right? That's great. That's great as long as I keep my $5,000 in there. I take my $5,000 out, it stops. I could take that same $5,000, and by the way, all I have is $5,000. I still have an asset of $5,000. I take the same $5,000 and I buy a $100,000 house, which I can do. First thing that happens is my 5,000 goes from being 5,000 to $100,000 worth of asset. Second thing is it's much more stable because it doesn't fluctuate. It's like if I'm getting 1,200, I get 1,200 a month every month, and it's consistent.
Yeah, it doesn't go. That's funny. It doesn't go up like the economy changed. I'm only getting $1,100 for rent from my tenant this month. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or it doesn't go up to $1,800 either. I mean, it can, which we've just came through 2 years of that with COVID. But if you raise your rents like that much, then you're in trouble, because sooner or later those people will move and you'll be back down to your regular rent. So I didn't do all that. I raised rents, but I didn't raise them to the peak, because it'll stabilize out. Anyways, the third point is that if I own real estate, I can take that $5,000 out and still own the asset.
Yep.
Which is the reason why I kind of bash stocks a little bit, because that's how it works. But unfortunately, like we talked about in podcast number 339, which was the last podcast, and we called it What Actually Is Creative Real Estate. There's no clear idea until we made that podcast. There's no clear idea of what you need to do. There's no clear definition of this is how you do creative real estate. There's no school. There's no lessons. There's nothing. What you have is a bunch of people that have their idea of how to do subject to, and then they tag on wholesale, or their idea of what to do wholesale, and they tag on, like lease options, right? I didn't know this when I was doing this, but I'm the only one that I know of. Now I don't know everybody, so I'm not saying that I'm the only one, but the only one that I know of at this point that encompasses all 7 deals strategies, because there's only 7 of them, right? There's not many of them, right? There's a bunch of variant ways to use them, but and on Bill's planet we use them, correctly. And the way we do that is with loan to value ratio and how much equity the property has. And then we know exactly which one to use and which one not to use, right?
Yep.
I've never seen anybody do that before. And when I did it, I was doing it on a necessity level. I needed to invent, necessity level is the mother of invention. I had an acquisition manager and I was trying to train him, and I was struggling because I needed help. I needed relief. I had too many deals.
Yep.
I was going like a madman and couldn't, I was buying 7 or 8 deals a month, and closing on 3 or 4. That's a lot of work by yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's not very clear what is creative real estate, right? And it's kind of like, you're in New York and you want to drive to California, and you just jump in the car with a suitcase and you go. It's like, yeah, you can head in the right direction. You can aim for the West Coast, but how do you get there?
Yeah.
And how much waste will you have trying things out?
That's right.
So, that's the way creative real estate right now, like you said earlier, it's the wild, wild west, right? So I want to back up to what you were talking about, because you said creative real estate is creative, like an artist. And that's a bit of a misnomer, because there's only certain ways you can do them. There's only certain documents that you're going to use. You're going to use options. You're going to use leases. You're going to use purchase and sales contracts. You're going to use land contracts. You're going to use deeds, and that's it. So the creative part is how you use those documents. So you might have a subject to deal where you're going to take over a mortgage. The creative part is having 100 different variants of ways that you could do that. Right? So the creative part is not the actual strategies. The creative part is the way that you use them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's how art is as well. Right. And I say that because I've seen like people in trouble with the house. I'm not going to give any details, but something isn't working, and we're thinking, how am I going to buy this thing? Look at all the problems. And you go, oh, wait a minute. Why don't we do this? And you find a way legally to use normal channels, normal activities, but you find like, well, that was a smart way to do it, and everyone else is going, can't do it. And you find a way, and it's in the system.
Well, let me give you a quick example of that, just that makes you understand exactly what Peter just said. So, you have a house they owe taxes on, property taxes on.
Yep.
Any conventional person, any attorney, any realtor, any normal investor that thinks they understand investing will automatically think they have to pay the taxes. Right? Where what we've done in the past is we go to the tax man, and because the money's already borrowed. Right? So suppose you owe $10,000 in taxes.
Yep.
The money's already borrowed. In other words, you borrowed it from the city because you still have the house, and they're asking, you know what I mean? You already had the money borrowed. So what I've done is I've gone to the city, and I'll make an arrangement with them where I cap it, and like I pay on the 10,000 and I pay my current taxes, and they'll let me do that. Right? So you don't need to go get $10,000, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about. So, conventional wisdom would say, oh, no, you got to pay the taxman. If you don't pay the taxman, he'll close down again. No, by the way, what did I just say? What did I call him? Tax what?
Man?
Oh, I didn't call him tax men. There's not a committee.
Oh.
There's a tax man. There's one person. And you go talk to that person, and he's in charge of this.
Yeah.
So if you talk to that person, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a man. There are many of them are women these days, but you get my point. Right?
Hmm.
All right. So let's move on. So let's start off with what I strongly suggest, and you've never heard this before, Peter. This is brand new to you. So
Hmm.
what I strongly suggest as a mission statement that we can all use and build upon. So this is what we do as creative real estate investors, and then I'm going to get to all this other stuff later, all the necessities, right, or the ingredients, right? Because it's not
Yes.
as complex as you think. Probably whoever started listening to this podcast thought that there was going to be a list of them, like, oh, do this, do like a checklist, and that's not true.
No, and that's what I'm saying. You take all the stuff out that you don't need, and that's how this gets easier. At least it's just a few things to focus on, and that's a big
Right.
difference. That's
Right.
how I started, like with a list of 12 things. Bill, what do I do? And he goes, get rid of the first 11 and
Yeah.
start there.
Right.
Seriously,
Totally.
I can't do 12.
Exactly.
Maybe
All right.
one.
So here's the mission statement. Ready? We help real estate buyers and sellers get more than they expected with their transaction by assisting them with reliable, creative real estate strategies.
Nice.
Right. So I'll repeat that. So this is a mission statement. You should write this down and you should use it, because the more of us that say this, the more it becomes real to our sellers, and we could be more likable and more known about. So here we go. Here's a mission statement. We help creative real estate buyers and sellers get more than they expected with their transactions by assisting them with reliable, creative real estate strategies. It's simple and defines exactly who we should deal with and what we do with them once we meet them.
I noticed the second time you read that you called the buyers and sellers creative too, didn't you? We help creative sellers and buyers, right?
Yeah, so we help real estate buyers and sellers
Okay.
get more than they expected with their transaction by assisting them with reliable, creative real estate strategies.
Got it.
Okay. And again, you should write that down, and that, like I said, it explains who we should deal with and what we're going to do with them. So up until now, nobody's defined or put in a sentence. It's a long sentence, but put in a sentence, what is creative real estate? That is what creative real estate is. We help real estate buyers and sellers get more than they expected with their transactions by assisting them with reliable, creative real estate strategies.
Yeah.
But there is some bad news with this little mission statement formula.
Uh-oh.
All right, so here we go. The secret ingredient to getting results in creative real estate is your philosophy and attitude and how you hold what you know, plus the way it affects you. It's taken me 30 years to learn that. The secret ingredient to getting results in creative real estate is your philosophy or attitude and how you hold what you know, plus the way it affects you. All right, so let me put a reality check to this, okay?
Yeah. Give us examples or expound, please.
I've had many coaching clients that now I spot it right away, but before I didn't spot it as quickly, and sometimes it would take me months to figure it out.
Yeah.
So suppose I personally would not allow you to put the deed in your name and keep the mortgage in my name. If I was an investor or an entrepreneur, a real estate entrepreneur, and I need to call you up, Peter, and say, would you sell the house for what you owe on it? And you're like, yes, I would. Well, if I personally would not be willing to put the deed in your name and allow the mortgage to stay in my name, how am I going to convince you, the seller, to do it?
Like you would never do that. I would never give somebody my house, right?
Yeah.
So Right. I see what you mean. So yeah, we've run into people like there. You wind up stopping yourself because you have to ask the seller to do something you wouldn't be willing to do. Like I would never do that. Like who would do that?
Right.
Like
Right.
who cares what you would do? If the guy will do it, let him do it. But
Right.
we wind up stopping ourselves because we wouldn't do it. Wow. And I've seen that. I know what you mean.
So that's why I say the secret ingredient in getting real estate, creative real estate, is your philosophy and attitude,
Yeah.
and how you hold what you know, plus the way it affects you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Here's another one. You do, and you did this to me. I've done it myself. I know this for a fact. You buy a house, you work really hard, especially your first 2 or 3 deals, 1, 2, 3, 4 deals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I can name 3 people off the top of my head right now that have been in my coaching group, and this is exactly what happened to them, and it killed them. They're no longer. One of them works at Home Depot. I see her monthly. I go to Home Depot, and she's like, "Hey, Bill, how's the house is going?" Okay, and here's what happened. You buy an ugly house. You do all the work, which, by the way, is the hardest way to buy a house, the hardest deal structure to do. We call it rehab retail. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It is the hardest thing to do the first time. They're not
Mm-hmm.
not that they're hard, but if it's the only deal you have and you've never done a deal before, this is the most amount of things you need to learn.
Yeah.
It has the most steps and the most amount of things and the most amount of booby traps. Right?
Sure.
It's the hardest transaction. Anyways, you buy a house and you're going to renovate it. Right? And here's what happens. Now I'm going to read this statement again, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The secret ingredient into getting results in creating real estate is your philosophy or attitude and how you hold what you know, plus the way it affects you.
Mm.
So this person that I'm thinking of right now renovated the house as if they were going to live there. Okay. Now here's a separate. I'm going to come back to that for a minute. Here's a separate idea. I'm a perfectionist. I've heard so many people say that. Right? So now they're going to fix every little tiny little, like down by the molding in the corner of the room. There's a little nail hole down there, and I got to patch it. We painted the whole wall, so I got to patch it and paint that wall again because I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the secret ingredient into getting results in creative real estate is your philosophy or attitude and how you hold what you know, plus the way it affects you.
Yeah.
So let's go back. So being a perfectionist will hold you back.
Yep.
Right. Or going back to the original deal, you renovate this house so it's like your house, and there's a couple of things that happen. Number one, you spend too much money on the renovation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about doing cheap renovations. I mean, you and I have done plenty of renovations. We don't cheap out, but there's certain things you can and can't do. I mean, think of it this way. Walk around your house right now with the furniture in it, and you're not going to see half the walls.
Yeah.
But when it's empty, you're going to see all of that. So the problem with that, which is why I always make the statement, which was podcast number 339, the difference between doing that deal and doing a creative real estate deal is when you do that deal, it's all about the house. You have to make the house pretty. It's all about the house. You come into creative real estate, the house is secondary. It's all about the paperwork connected to the house. It's all about how you can purchase, and pay monthly and not need all the money now.
Yep.
Right? There's a big difference between the two, right? So what happens is somebody will fall in love with the house because they spend 4 months every single day going over there, fixing the house and doing this and doing that. And they fall in love with the house. And instead of putting it on the market for 180, they're like, let's go for 200 because they fell in love with the house.
Mm-hmm. They think it's special.
It's the best house in the neighborhood. You become what your seller tells you all the time. Okay. So I think I made my point here. Is the secret ingredient to results in creative real estate is your philosophy or attitude and how you hold what you know, plus the way it affects you.
Yeah.
And now here's the interesting thing. And there are only 2 prevalent types of attitudes and value-driven philosophies in creative real estate, or in life for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
You ready?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here they are. 1, what can I do to help you? Or 2, What have you done for me lately? Now, these are common. I mean, especially nowadays. I
Mhm.
mean, geez, I can't recall it. I read something the other day. I can't quite recall. Well, I know where it is, but I read something the other day, and the author was talking about a television world
Really?
and how it changes reality, and
Mhm.
how we have a "What have you done for me lately?" started in the 50s when TV hit the scene.
So what have you done for me in a bad way?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what have you done for me lately, right? So an entitled attitude says, pay me more and then maybe I'll work harder.
Oh, yeah.
And a value driver attitude or value driven attitude says, I'll work harder and then I expect you'll pay me more.
Yep.
Right? So see how valuable this attitude and philosophy is to your success?
Yeah.
Because you say it more than I say it, but too many of our coaching clients, our students, are in the transaction. And you worked for a very long time. I think you've changed since, but you were in it just for the money. You used to say, "Oh, I want to do my music. I want to do my art. This I'm just in real estate just to make money."
Mhm.
Right? And that's one of these attitudes. Which one do you think that is? Right? It's what have you done for me lately?
Mhm.
Right? Now, how many times, and I learned this early on just in sales. I mean, I didn't even learn this in career real estate. I learned this before I got through career real estate. So it's like,
Yeah.
how many times have you heard me say, well, if there's anything I can do for you, just call me. Even if I don't buy your house, I'd be glad to help you.
You do say that, and you mean it, and you'll do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
My dad tried to teach me things like that. He was just a barber. We had the best shop. He had governors, senators, celebrities in this, and this is just Hartford. This is in LA or New York, but just that attitude of being really helpful, going the extra mile. A lot of my friends do that in their businesses, and that's way better.
Right.
Maybe it's old school, but a lot of those old customs and old ideas and all that, those are good, really
So
good.
if you so desire, the next couple minutes, I will tell you why this is. There's a philosophy of why this is. Do you want me to do that, or do you want me to keep moving?
No, it sounds interesting because, I'm sure we've all been told these things, but like it goes on deaf ears. Like, why should I? Well, no, the world. Hey, how about this? Here's what we're hearing lately. The world is different now. The
Yeah.
old rules don't apply. We have to redo everything. That's baloney. We didn't do enough of really good sound principles. And now instead of doing those, we're going to do some stupider things. So really good sound principles that help you survive are important. So go ahead. I'm sure it's going to be something very enlightening for us.
So in sales, of course, you have to realize that I am at heart, before I am anything else, I'm a copywriter. Right? I don't talk about it much. I write. I was for a very long time writing 20,000 words a week. Between the podcast, between my books, between my emails. I was running. I mean, I do that some weeks now, but I think nothing of sitting down in an hour or two and writing 2 or 3 thousand words. I think
Mhm,
nothing of it.
mhm,
Right? But it's taken me a long time to get that. My point is that I was a salesperson first because I sold consulting and I had a used car lot and I used to sell cars. Now I'm not. I didn't learn from the other used car guys. I had a gas station and decided one day that I wanted to sell my 9 tow trucks and start selling used cars because somebody gave me a car and I put it out front for $1,000 and I made $900 because I fixed
mhm,
it myself at night and I put it out front. And I'm like, huh. And then I did it again, and then I did it again. So I didn't. I sold record numbers in my used car lot because I didn't do it the way everybody else did it. So I
mhm.
was not that sleazy, like come in. I did it the way I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what happens. When you say, what can I do to help you? It physically, not mentally, it physically, mentally makes you go get up from your side of the table, walk around the table, and stand in your prospect's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Because now what happens is you have to go over there and get their point of view, or what they're seeing and what they're hearing and what they're feeling, and know that before you can do anything.
Yeah.
That is the definition of copywriting. Copywriting, by the way, is salesmanship on a page. When you do copywriting, when you really do copywriting, if you have not experienced the product yourself, in other words, bought the product, like if I was going to copywrite for, the shoe salesman down the street in a shoe store, I'd have to go there and be a customer and go through the process and go through the experience of the person buying the shoes.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I can start writing professionally on the experience.
Right.
So when you say, what can I do to help you? It makes you personally go through the experience with the prospect.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, what have you done for me lately? You nix anything that's the used car salesman. You're like, okay, well, buy this car because it's the best commission for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's not that. How can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about me. Okay, so enough of that. That's not the point of today's podcast. We diverted, but a value-driven attitude and philosophy is everything. Now, I know there's people that are listening to me right now or have logged off of this podcast because they thought I was going to give them a checklist. I'm telling you with all my heart, these little mindset things are the difference. I have worked with hundreds of people, and the people, our coaching group, look at our coaching group. Who comes to the call every Monday night with questions?
Mm-hmm.
And who doesn't?
Mm.
And who's buying houses and who isn't?
Yeah.
Says a lot. Okay.
Yeah. What you just said in those last 2 minutes, for me, that's the most important part until, whatever's coming next, I don't know. But if you don't find out what the person wants and what they need and help them do that, how the hell are you going to buy the house? If you just there's what's in it for me and what you want to do. I mean, any sales and in music and art, we're always thinking, how will the audience perceive this? How will it hit them? Not to just be like whatever they want, but will this go over? It's like the recipient. When you talk to somebody, are you cognizant of what you're going to say and how it's going to?
Well, the truth is if you have art, right, and you're making art, whose opinion matters? Yours or the guy that's going to pay you for the art?
If they don't like it, they don't like it.
and they don't pay you and you have no money, right? So in our particular case, our sellers are giving us a shit ton of money, either in equity or in cash flow, to solve their problems.
Because we listened, and that's the point. You said it a lot of different ways.
No. It's back up. What? I don't want to interrupt what I just said because it's not because we listened. That is part of it. That's the discovery stage. But our customers, our sellers are paying us sometimes tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars of equity and or hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars over the course of time in cash flow to solve their problem. So you better goddamn well know what that problem is because you're going to make a shit ton of money. Then it goes to what you're saying. So we have to understand what it is, but you better goddamn well be able to put your finger on oh, so you have a tax bill and you don't want to deal with it. I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not even where we're supposed to be today. So let's go back to the podcast. So if you so don't believe anything I'm telling you today. What I want you to do is a drill for the next 24 hours, yourself personally, and this includes you, Peter, because I actually want you to tell me what happened because I want to know, because you'll give me feedback. You'll give me honest feedback. So what I want you to do is I want you to watch someone's actions for a short period of time and then pick what their philosophy is.
Ooh, wow. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Wow, interesting.
Right, so just watch someone and their actions, right? Because your philosophy is your view of life. Something beyond feelings and attitudes. Your philosophy drives your attitudes and feelings. And that's where the action comes from.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
now watch this, because here is a gauge for me. I think I wrote this later. If I come back to it later, I'll come back to it later. But here's a gauge for me. When I watch people, and I can name them, I'm talking about relatives. Now, my dad just passed away. So I've been to Florida and I'm going back next week. And I'm with family that I don't spend a lot of time with sometimes. I
Mm-hmm.
talk to them, but I don't watch them. I don't see them. They're 1,500 miles away from me. So, what are you ready for this? My little test. Is their actions for comfort or accomplishment? Are their actions for comfort or accomplishment?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I go to, are they looking to help someone, or are they looking to, what's in it for them lately? Now, I'm going to stop here because I can go on for 2 hours on this, but I will tell you, I promise you wholeheartedly, and you don't have to believe me at all. Look at it in your own life. Help is the number one thing that every person either has or doesn't have. And if they don't have it, that's their ruin. That's their problem in life. It is natural for a human being to want to help another human being.
Mm-hmm.
Help is like a foundation of your personality.
Yep.
It's huge. And just look around. So let's get off the topic because I spent too much time on it. All right, ready? So most are looking in the wrong place for success. They're looking for that big breakthrough or an amazing quantum leap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Much like going to the casino and playing craps and hoping you'll fill your pockets and go home. Right? Now, there's an old story, which I'm not going to get into, but I'm going to just give it to you really brief. The old story is there's this guy, he goes to the casino and he wins and wins and wins, and he's always winning, and he's like just having fun. And he goes up there, he goes to the casino just to kind of like have fun.
Mm-hmm.
You're not paying attention to money, but he always wins.
Yep.
And then a few years later, he gets married, he has kids, he loses his job, and he has no money. And he goes to the casino and he loses everything. What's the difference? His philosophy, his attitude, and what he knows.
Yep.
That's the difference. And that's where I came up with this whole neediness thing that we talked about for a long time. Because when you have neediness in there, it scares away all the success. So the guy that went to the casino had neediness, and it scared away the money.
Yep.
Okay. See,
Mm-hmm.
everything in life has a natural production. I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. Yeah. So, see, everything in life has a natural progression.
Yeah.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Plant, cultivate, harvest.
He says to the gardener, yeah, plant, cultivate, harvest. Good.
Right. And successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do when it comes to plant, cultivate, and harvest. And here's the meat and potatoes of the podcast. I know I've been kind of like dinking around here, but let's go here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Here is the number one ingredient for being successful. Absolutely, hands down, you do what I'm about to tell you, which, by the way, you won't. Or you will do it and you'll stop and then you'll come back to it. How do I know it? Because I've been doing that. I'm 59 years old. I've been doing this for 40 years. It's like a roller coaster. I do it, I don't do it. I do it, I don't do it. I do it, I don't do it.
Wow.
So it brings me to my next ingredient, which we're going to talk about, is to master the mundane.
Mm.
And mundane means the normal or not very interesting, almost boring.
Mm.
In other words, it's practical and ordinary or commonplace that is not very exciting.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I struggle with this because I'm a adventure seeker. I'm definitely that guy in life that would be on the front lines, scouting out where we're going next. And Peter, you know me. I am that guy. I love excitement. Right?
Yeah. The new thing.
Yeah.
The next thing.
Shiny object, right? So doing the steady, repeated actions in creative real estate that gets the results and the wealth. That's where most people lose it. Right?
Yep.
Much like water repeatedly running over the hardest rock ever and making it smooth, or putting a cut or cutting it in half. I didn't make this up. Look at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
The Grand Canyon is exactly that. It's water running, cutting through the rocks, and look what it's done. It's made a Grand Canyon.
Yeah, pretty grand.
Oh, by the way, what does that mean? Grand means what?
Friggin' large.
And what does a canyon mean?
That means a pretty big cut.
That means a hole, right? In the earth, through the rocks.
Yeah.
Right? That's the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful, is mastering the mundane, the boring shit, the stuff that has to be done that you get bored with and you just don't want to do it. Now, let me be extremely clear here. The only thing you need to do, or the bare necessity of creative real estate investing, is this. The only thing that you need to do, there is nothing else you need to do. And I have pounded this gauntlet for years and have not been believed, and the ones that do believe me succeed and become millionaires. Talk to motivated sellers. Watch this. Talking to sellers or motivated sellers and mastering this mundane action will make you a multimillionaire. It'll teach you everything you need to know, because the seller is the one that's paying you. So the more you learn about them, the more you can make more deals.
Yeah.
You want to know how to have all these core strategies and all this math and all. You know what? I'm gonna fix that right now, because Peter, I've been to hundreds of closings. Actually, I haven't been to hundreds of. I've orchestrated hundreds of closings, hundreds and hundreds of them. I've been to, I don't know, we'll say 50 or 75 closings, right? Because my attorneys do that, right?
And the rest you stay home.
Yeah. So here's the most amazing thing ever. I have never once, ever once, seen a house sign the documents.
Well, G-Bell, it can, because it has no hands.
Right? It's always been the seller that showed up. And the reason why the seller showed up to the closing is because they were going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, your seller's philosophy is, what have you done for me lately?
Right. And your mission statement was, they get more than they expected, something along those lines, right?
The transaction,
and my dad tried to teach me that. Give people more than they planned on getting, and you'll have customers for life and tips and that. But right there, more than they expected.
Right.
Yeah.
So by just talking to sellers, and I don't care if you don't know anything, my bad language, you don't know crap. You know nothing about anything. Just talk to a seller, or two, or three. In fact, don't even talk to two. Just talk to one. Right? I strongly suggest you record yourself and listen to what you said. Right? After you do this at least 5 times, you'll know, here's where my weak points are, here's where my strong points are. And like you said at the beginning of the podcast, what do you eliminate? What you already know. You already know that. So you don't need to put your attention on that. What you do is you work on the things that you need help with. So now, if there's 10 things to learn, you just omitted all the other 9 because there's only one thing you need.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So by talking to sellers, you'll make $1 million. It'll teach you everything you need to know about the sellers, and the sellers are the ones that are paying you.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, how to find them. It'll teach you how to find them because you got to have to call them. So you got to find out where are they, right? It'll, number 4, teach you how to talk to them correctly. I'm going to tell you right now, when I had to take a crap the first time on planet Earth, it wasn't a pretty sight. It did not go in a toilet nice and clean and I wiped myself. I can tell you that right now. Okay?
Thanks
Everything
for the image, Bill.
everything you do in life the first couple times is a mess.
Well, a few minutes ago, you said something that made me think. Folks, listen, imagine when you started that job that you got, the first one or the second one or the third one, those first few days, you had no idea what you're doing. I was talking to my son and his job, and there's no training for it. They just he said, I took a year to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
He sat there on the computer and don't go in here. It's terrible. You don't get that much training. You go to college and you learn all this stuff and you wind up in a job. It's not what you learned in school.
Right.
So you still have to do that. So why not here?
The other thing you're going to do when you talk to sellers is you're going to make offers. You're going to learn what offers to make them. Mm-hmm. And I promise you, the only thing you need to know in creative real estate is this sentence. What would have to happen for you to buy your house today? Mm-hmm. And not enough people use that because the seller will make you an offer. Now you just say, okay, I'll get back to you. I'm going to go talk to my partners or my friends or my mentors. Mm-hmm. Worst case scenario is you send a support ticket to me. I'm not gonna coach you, but I'm gonna give you an idea. Do this or do that, or go watch this video, or go do this, right? Which, by the way, well, I'll get to that. One of the most amazing things that I have ever done in my entire life, I decided this yesterday, was hooking up with my other 3 partners and creating this creative REI replay. And you know it because you use it. It does all this for you, including I put all in one spot, all my best training in one spot, which is all the checklists. So mm-hmm. The way it works is you ask some questions, you put 4 or 5 numbers into our deal calculator, right? And it tells you which deal by a red, yellow, green light, which deal you can do. And then once you decide what the deal is, there's a checklist on what to do and how to deal with the customer and how to do other paperwork. I've never made it that simple. Mm. So what offers to make them is irrelevant. You just haven't hooked into the right stuff yet, right? But I can promise you, if you have a motivated seller that's telling you, yes, I'll take monthly payments, and yes, I'll take 30% less than what it's worth, I promise you, you will not sleep. You will figure out how to get that deal. Right? That's like having the prettiest girl in school asking you out on a date and you have no money. You're going to figure out how to get your dad's car and how to get $30 to take her out to dinner or whatever the number is. You're going to figure it out, right?
Sure.
Okay, so number 6, how to close deals. And number 7, the most important value you could bring your seller and get paid. You're going to learn what the value is. What do they want? Mm. What's going to move the needle to keep them chasing you? Okay? And I'm telling you, this is the hardest part of my life, my entire life. I have been bruised, I've been hospitalized, I've been killed dead and gone radio silent for years because I can't get this understood. It's too simple. All you need to do is call a seller. A seller. You do not need to answer their questions. You do not need to be a professional. You do not need to sound like you're me and talk to thousands of people. You just need to be real and interested in them. And tell them, I don't have an answer for that question, but I'll get back to you. And they will respect you. And after a while, you'll start to notice you don't have to tell them that.
Yep.
Look, I don't think there's a person I've met in real estate who doesn't want my experience. But this is the lie. Only because most think they want my experience is what makes my deals. My experience makes my deals. No. That's not what makes my deals.
Mm-hmm.
What makes my deals is outflow makes my deals. Outflow, talking to enough sellers is what makes my deals. If you talk to enough sellers, sooner or later, you'll find a motivated one and they will let you make mistakes and learn because a motivated seller says yes more than they say no.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the difference between you, meaning my listener right now, and me is I can convert more than you can. That's the only difference. So maybe I have to talk to 10 people and you have to talk to 30.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the difference between you and I. But how do you think I started? Do you think I started this way? No, I started off talking to 1,000 people first, or whatever the number, 100 people first.
Yep.
Right?
Sure.
What we did back then is we put signs out because it was new. We put signs out and people would call me, which we're working on that right now. You and I talked about that, and I'm going to be working on that over the next several weeks because I think I have a very clever way of getting people to call you that is not being used in the industry, but it's being used everywhere else. And just to give you a hint, it's called a webinar.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. So most important, the motivated seller will get you through an entire deal so you can see how it works. So all you need to do is dial the phone or text enough people and just learn.
Mm-hmm.
Make mistakes. You did that. You called me up and I told you call for sale by owners. And next thing you know, a week later, we're in a house. We didn't buy the house, but we're in a house. And you learned what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
And I didn't call, I'm sure like a lot of you guys out there are afraid to call or nervous to call or insecure to call because you think, you won't do a good enough job to convince the guy to sell you the house. Well, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Bill doesn't convince everybody to sell him the house. They don't want to sell him the house. They won't sell him the house, no matter what he says.
That's a valuable point. So here's what happens. So going back to your philosophy, attitude, and what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what your philosophy should be when you call a seller.
Good.
I need to make sure that this person I need to find the suspects. So when I call this guy up, if he's a suspect, I found him, I whack him, and I get rid of him. Okay, thank you. This is not for me. And the new script that we use, which is what I call the solopreneur script, pretty much is what's your price? Okay, the only way for me to buy the house for that number is if I make monthly payments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want monthly payments. Okay, then you got to give me a discount. I mean, we cushion it. You got to give me a discount. And if the discount's not more than 10%, they are a suspect. In the first 5 minutes.
Bill,
it's just that easy.
Bill, I did that yesterday, and I've been using the script, but I haven't been making as many calls. And Monday we talked, and I started shifting my operation to more calls. I did the call exactly like that. I wasn't sure if it was the right house. It looked really expensive, and blah, 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 all that stuff, whatever. I just did the call anyways. Nice guy. We had a great talk. I went through the thing. I was done for sure. I'm finished. This is it. Not going to work out. Okay. 4 minutes, 49 seconds.
Yep.
Okay. And if I just did what I do with the piece of paper, it would have been a half an hour.
Yep.
But I got right to it. 4 minutes, 49 seconds.
So you said something very profound at the beginning of the podcast, and I don't know if you meant to say that, but you need to get rid of what you don't need. And you don't need suspects. By the way, 97%, 90% of 7% of the people you talk to are going to be suspects. And all a suspect means is they say no to what you want to do more often than they say yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make monthly payments and they don't want to make monthly payments, they're a suspect. They're not a suspect to sell their house because somebody will buy their house. They're just suspects for the way that we want to do it.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So motivated sellers. So all you're looking to do is find and get rid of the suspects because all of a sudden the prospect will float to the top. Okay. Then once you hear that first prospect, from that day on, you'll have something to gauge all of your deals with.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I call it. I call plus points and out points. Right?
Mm-hmm.
all your deals will have plus points and out points from that original owner that you did the deal with. So,
Okay.
like right now, your first deal, you look back consciously or subconsciously at all the plus points and out points or negative points, right?
Yeah.
Compared to your first deal. The first time you heard a motivated seller, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your key ingredient to fight the boring, mundane activity of calling sellers. And what happens is too many of us get clever with all these, VA virtual assistants and texting, and we forget the most important part is to talk to the seller.
Yeah.
Even if you're on Zillow, just dialing, go get leads. Just go to Zillow, type in your zip code, where you want to be, and just start dialing. Or go on Facebook Marketplace and go under rents and just text people like, would you be willing to rent for a year or two and then sell to me?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody will want to talk to you. You have to talk to sellers and make offers. And this new creative REI replay system that I'm a founder of, does 90% of this work for you in a human manner. I could tell you the things that I had meetings about lately that I had no idea was how this software was going to end up is incredible. It is absolutely. We have stuff coming down the road that nobody else has. And it's because there's 4 of us with 4 different talents.
Mm-hmm.
And we put them together and we come up with some amazing stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, just the calculator alone is worth the system. And then, oh yeah, by the way, Sean told me yesterday in our meeting, you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
It's not released yet, but right now, you go into Creative REI Replay. We put leads in there for you, automatic, part of your subscription.
Mm-hmm.
They text. All you do is go back in. You go into the system every day, every other day, whatever you do, 3 times a week, and you respond to those texts that came to you. That's how you find your leads,
Mm-hmm.
right? You get on the phone with them and you use our solopreneur script, which is right in the system. It pops up. You fill in the 5 or 6 numbers in the calculator. It tells you what deal to do. You click on the deal. There's a little checklist there of all the things you got to go over with the seller to make sure they want to do that deal. When they're done, you hit save. A box pops up and you send them right on the phone. You send them a memorandum to sign while you're on the phone. Now that's pretty awesome.
That's nuts. Awesome.
Oh, wait till you hear this. So what we just completed, which we have not released yet, once you decide that this is a subject to deal, you'll click a button or click whatever. I don't know. I think it's a button. You'll click a button. It will automatically pull the subject to documents you need, automatically fill them out, and put them in your, download them to your computer. So all the documents you need to do a subject to deal are pre-populated and put into your computer. And by the way, within not a long period of time, we're going to have it so that you can actually get them signed legally.
And they're filled out
Mm-hmm.
with the names and numbers.
Right. You want to do a slot deal? You push a button and automatically it pulls the documents you need for a slot deal and automatically populates them with the customer's name, the address, everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
You want to do a rehab retail deal? It automatically pulls the documents and fills them out. You want to do a lease option deal? Automatically pulls the documents, fills them out. You want to do a rent to own? You're going to sell it to somebody, to a buyer? Automatically pulls the documents, fills them out. Who does that?
I mean, it's hard to imagine that it can be done. Well, we can fly to the moon and Mars and all that, but things like this, it's crazy. I mean, 5-10 years ago, I don't think this could have happened.
No. So anyways, if you want to know where to look at that, you want to go check it out. There's a link in the chat. You can go there, and I put it in there today because it's just, I mean, I'm not saying it because I created it. I'm not even trying to sell it to you. I'm just telling you, this is what I dreamed of for 30 years. This software is what I wanted for 30 years. And I've thought and I've talked about it. And these guys helped me make it possible.
You guys are like the Beatles.
Yeah, exactly. With creative real estate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, seriously, you have like a number of people together. The real name is the Mastermind Group.
Yeah.
Separate talents, because it's hard to be good at everything on your own. It's not possible. So having a team like the four of you, I don't think you guys would be friends socially, just go hanging out. It isn't that at all. You and I, we go to the movies, we go to dinner. Sean's in Florida, so we can't even go out with him anymore. I wanted to go meet him, but he moved down there. But together as a team, as a business.
Yeah, we got to go because we're 8 minutes past or 5 minutes past. But you're right, 100%. So just remember before we end off, real estate is made to take money out of it, not put money into it. And that's what we're here with 340 podcasts telling you how to do, right? And now this is the newest profound statement that I make. We do creative real estate to change our lives. We don't change our lives to do creative real estate. Right? So you have to have these philosophies. If you don't believe these two core philosophies, then or have these attitudes, then you're done. Don't do creative real estate. You're not going to make it. Right? And if you just follow along with what I told you, just talk to one seller and then another seller and have what I talked about today, these core philosophies, you'll be like me. And one day you'll wake up and you'll have done hundreds of deals. Because that's literally what happened to me. One day I woke up and I'm like, oh, shit, I didn't realize we did so many deals.
Yep.
I still don't realize. To me, it's still not real because I'm always doing the next deal. Like I never did a deal. All right, good. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for all your support. Remember, you can reach me for any questions at flippinghousesforrookies.com. Up in the top right-hand side, there's a support link. You can go there. You can go to WhatsApp Messenger and type in "Let's Talk Real Estate." Also in the chat, or I'm sorry, not in the chat, in the description of this podcast, either you're watching or listening to it, there's a link in there for you. And don't forget to subscribe to us and like us. If you like today's information, make sure you like us and give us a review. Okay, so we're over now. Next time we gather, it will be for episode number 341. Have a good week, boys and girls. Over now.